Yo, what's going on, guys? Let's try back again here, bringing another video. So this time we'll be doing another video on a topic, kind of a random topic. I'm going to be doing a review of an old school anime. One that probably most of you haven't seen for at least 10, 15, 20 years maybe. I mean, it's pretty old school at this point, and that is, of course, the classic Dragon Ball Z. Now, I won't really talk too much about Dragon Ball GT or Dragon Ball in this review, maybe a little bit, but not too much, because this is a review of Dragon Ball Z, the show, in general of itself. It's not really affected because Dragon Ball had its own thing and Dragon Ball GT was kind of different. It wasn't written by Toriyama, so this is just going to be a Dragon Ball Z. So, is this the greatest anime of all time? I mean, that's a very good question. I'm not sure if you can say for sure because, that's a subjective question. But it's certainly, I'd have to say, if you made a list of the top 3 animes of all time, top 5, top 10, if it's not number 1, it's pretty damn close. It's got, I think, any reputable, anime viewers list of top 10 animes of all time, Dragon Ball Z either has to be number 1, number 2, number 3. It's got to be up there. Seeing as how it's been so popular, I mean, this anime became a worldwide show. It was not just shown in Japan like most animes are nowadays. I mean, it became worldwide. People watch this everywhere. People in Italy watch Dragon Ball Z. People in frickin' North America, of course, South America, the UK, everywhere. Dragon Ball Z, everywhere. People watch this show. People know what the show's about. So I won't be really going over the synopsis. I'll just break it down and go over a few details. So, of course, I went back over to do this review and I watched about a good solid 50 episodes of Dragon Ball Z. And just to kind of, as an adult, to go back, because it's been a while since I've watched it, and, actually sat down and watched a lot of the episodes. And, I have to say that a lot of times as an adult, when you go back and you watch an old show from your childhood, sometimes you're kind of let down. You're kind of like, oh, it wasn't as good as it used to be, or as I thought it was. It wasn't as good as it used to be, when I was a kid, and I can't really watch it as an adult. I kind of went in with that idea when I was starting to watch Dragon Ball Z again. I kind of thought to myself, like, oh, is this going to be that type of situation where I watch it again and I'm just like, this isn't as good as I remember? And it's funny because it was actually the opposite. It was the complete opposite. As I started watching it again, the first episode, I was like, all right, whatever, I've seen this, a bunch of times. So then what I did was I started watching some of the episodes I hadn't seen too many times, maybe only like twice over. The reason for that is because when I was a kid, at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, they would show the beginning of from Raditz, the first episode, all the way through to the Frieza saga with the Ginyu Force. And they would just play that over and over and over again. They did that for like 2 years, every morning before school. So I would get up, and every time it got closer to the near Frieza saga, I'd be like getting excited, like, did they get the next episodes, I believe this was called the Ocean dub that I watched when I was a kid. Did they get the new episodes? So as it would come up to the Frieza saga again, I would be expecting the new episodes to come on, and they wouldn't. It would start back at Raditz again. I'd just be like, God damn it. And that happened like 5 times. So I literally watched almost every episode from the beginning of Raditz to the Ginyu Force, like probably 5 or 10 times over each one. So what I did was this time, as an adult going back, I started watching at the end of the Frieza saga. And what my favorite saga is of all of Dragon Ball Z, and that is the Cell saga. You can break it down into, if you want to call it, the Android saga and the Cell saga. Me personally, I think of Dragon Ball Z as having 3 main sagas. You have the Frieza saga, the Cell saga, and the Buu saga. If you want to count it, if you want to break it up more, you can. You can say, Saiyan saga, Frieza saga, or Namek saga, Frieza saga, Android saga, Cell saga, the Majin Vegeta and Babidi saga, and then the Buu saga. So you can break it up more if you want to. It doesn't really matter. I think for simplicity's sake, I break it up with the 3 villains: Buu, Cell, and Frieza. Out of the 3, my favorite was the Cell saga. The reason why is because during that saga, everything just kind of came together. In the Buu saga, it was like Dragon Ball Z is getting a little long in the tooth. It's been on for over 200 episodes. For how many years? People who watched the beginning episodes of Dragon Ball Z, it's literally like 5 or 6 years later now that we're watching the other ones. So are these people still interested? You know what I mean? It's been a long time. People still watching it are only like going to be like the hardcore Dragon Ball Z fans, like myself and many others. So I really feel like the Cell saga was kind of where everything came to a climax, and it was like kind of the most. You had a lot more characters than when you did at the beginning. you know, and everything kind of came together really well. You had Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, you know, Piccolo was still effective. You know, Tien could still do a few things, could still, you know, get in there and mix it up with some of these guys and not get absolutely, you know, flicked with a finger and, you know, be thrown off the planet or something. Like in the Buu Saga, things just got over the top ridiculous. You know, all the characters who were powerful at the beginning of the show, by the time the Buu Saga came up, it was all the Super Saiyans. You know, all those characters, Tien, you know, Yamcha, Piccolo, all those guys who aren't Super Saiyans or the Saiyans became totally useless in the show. And that's one thing about the show that I didn't really like too much, is that as the show went on, Super Saiyan became the thing. You either were Super Saiyan or you weren't. And that took away from the diversity of the fighting, because a lot of the Super Saiyan's attacks are all kind of like the same. Their fighting style is very similar. It's kind of cool to have a green guy, you know, come in and do something totally crazy, like the special beam cannon, some of the other crazy stuff, regenerating arms and stuff. The stuff that he would do really mixed it up. Tien's you know, tri-beam attacks and stuff like that was very, very cool stuff. So my one big complaint about the show is that as the show went on, you know, the Super Saiyans just became, if you're not Super Saiyan, you can't do shit. And that kind of sucked. So for me, the Cell Saga was the best because everybody was able to still fight, and it was just super exciting. Now, that was just my opinion. A lot of people like the Frieza Saga more. I don't know many people that like the Buu Saga. I think the Buu Saga started out well with Majin Vegeta and all that, but I think that just the Buu character himself, not Fat Buu, but you know, Kid Buu and Super Buu and that, and I don't know. For me personally, I just wasn't feeling it too much at that point. It was just, maybe it was just getting too long in the show and that kind of stuff, but, or maybe Akira was kind of just, Toriyama was just kind of, he had enough of writing and that kind of stuff, and he just decided to half-ass it, so to speak. But the development during the Cell Saga was very interesting. I mean, you have a character from the future coming back, and you have, like, you know, in time, Goku gets sick, so the main character can't fight, so now the others have to step up, and then he gets better, he comes back in, you got the hyperbolic time chamber, all kinds of goodness, man. That was where Dragon Ball Z, in my opinion, was at its peak, man. That was some of the best stuff ever. Going back and watching it, one of the things that surprised me, a lot of people complain about the pacing of Dragon Ball Z, but it's very suspenseful, and it's addictive. If you start watching Dragon Ball Z back-to-back and you watch a good solid 5 to 10 episodes, try to stop watching it. It's kind of difficult. At the end of each episode, you're like, even though you probably know what happens because you've probably already seen it, and if you haven't, you should. It's very suspenseful. You know, you watch like 5 episodes, you're like, damn it, I don't want to stop. I want to see what happens in the next episode, the next episode, the next episode. And especially the first time you watch it, man, oh man. The first time you watch the show, it's like, it's insanely addictive. Suspenseful, dramatic. The action sequences are amazing, but overall I'd have to say, you know, just an insanely addictive show. And a lot of people, like there's some people who joke and stuff like that. Like one guy, I think in the comments on another video said, how many Dragon Ball Z characters does it take to screw in a light bulb? And then he put, he put like 1, but it'll take 6 episodes. And so a lot of people think that the show's pacing is too slow. And there is some filler in the show, but it's a Japanese anime. Good luck seeing a Japanese anime that's long running that doesn't have filler. Okay, Naruto's got some of the worst filler ever, and other shows too. They all have filler. Basically, all the Shonen Jump stuff has filler. So basically, what I'm saying is get over it. I'm not going to take that away. That's the way the genre is. There is filler. But really, I just feel like the pacing is a little bit slower because of the time it was created. Being in the early 90s when it was being put out there on in anime form, the pacing of shows was different than it is now. Jesus, it's like everybody's got ADHD these days with TV, man. Everything's got to be, in movies, everything's got to be like, you know, within a second, or else they lose their attention span's gone. They don't want to watch it anymore. You know, if you go back and watch some of the 80s movies and 70s movies, the pacing is way slower in the movies. It's not like, you know, scene cut. You know, in this scene you've got, you know, somebody blowing up something, and then you don't want to have a character walking to his car, so you cut to the character in his car at a house. Basically what I'm saying is that they just cut out like everything. It's just like, you know, they the way movies and TV are now, you know, everything just tries to get out there as fast as possible. They don't want any kind of lulls. Dragon Ball Z was more suspenseful, and in its time, that was normal to have, you know, pacing like that with a little bit slower pacing. So yeah, very suspenseful show. The action sequences, of course, I mean, I don't even need to really say anything about that. That kind of speaks for itself. This show, for the time it came out, has the best action sequences of any cartoon, bar none, ever. There is no question about it. This show destroys anything. For its time, this show slaughters anything that is any cartoon that's ever been released, any movie, any TV show, anything. The action sequences are insane. They're like, mixed martial arts on frickin', in outer space. I mean, the stuff is just crazy. The sequences and the fight scenes and everything. It's just amazing, man, what they were able to do at that time. Compared to what we had in North America, I mean, during the early days and stuff, like we had like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that was great and all that stuff, but the action sequences, you want to compare that to Dragon Ball Z? You can't compare that to Dragon Ball Z. The best we had was probably like X-Men, stuff like that. And even when you go back and watch that, and you watch Dragon Ball Z, you're like, I understand, The action sequences in Dragon Ball Z are amazing. Even today with Naruto and Bleach and the others, the action sequences in those shows are really good too. But I mean, it's almost 20 years later now that, they've been out, 10, 15, 20 years later. Of course they should be that good. For its time, Dragon Ball Z was new, it was unique, it was avant-garde, it was amazing, man. Just an awesome show. What else can I say about this show? Just absolutely amazing. Blew everything away that was out at the time. Wasn't like anything else out at that time at all. Was a lot of people's first experience with an ongoing series. So a series that everything in North America is episodic. So we might have 2 or 3 episode arcs maximum, but most episodes of cartoons and shows are one episode. There is a plot. It starts, it's got a climax, and it ends. And that's that way almost all the time. Shows like X-Men would have some 3 or 4 episode arcs, and that was kind of cool to see. But other than that, most other cartoons were all one episode, that's it. Dragon Ball Z was the first one where we actually got to see 50 episodes, 60 episode arcs where all kinds of stuff would happen, and it would leave you at the end of the episode just ready to start the next episode. You know what I mean? It wouldn't go back to a new story or anything like that, hardly ever, except for the end of the sagas. So an amazing series, probably the best anime of all time, if not in the top 3. Let me know what you guys think about, of course, the infamous Dragon Ball Z. This show for me gets a 10 out of 10. I disregard people's complaints about the slow pace. That's the way it was back in the day. There's worse filler out there. Naruto's filler is way worse than Dragon Ball Z's. What else? Some people don't like the story in Dragon Ball Z, or they think that it's kind of simplistic compared to others. But when you actually go back and you actually look at the story, it's a fantastically unique and interesting story. I mean, just who would even think about taking those characters from the first Dragon Ball cartoon and creating like a universal platform for them, going off to this other country this other planet that's made called Namek, with creatures from outer space, aliens fighting them, and for the most powerful being in the universe, and then a creature from the future coming back, and then Cell with the androids, him absorbing other androids for more power. Characters like Vegeta, where he's starts off and he's evil, he's the villain at the first part, and then Goku's able to influence him to such a point throughout the show that he actually becomes good and he does a lot of good things. The story in Dragon Ball Z is excellent. It's vast. It's deep. It is very deep, and a lot of people try to act as if it's kind of like just one of those things that passed when you were a kid, but the story is just kind of basic. No, Dragon Ball Z has a very unique story, a very unique atmosphere. Something totally different from anything else that was around at the time, basically, in my opinion, anyway. All right, that's it for now, guys. I won't drone on for any longer. Hope you enjoyed it. Dragon Ball Z review. Let me know what you thought about the show. 10 out of 10 from Trev. Later. See you.